My husband learnt that I'm pregnant with a girl and told me to leave as his mistress is expecting a boy. The mistress's baby turns out to be a girl, and the husband is left to confront his own biases and mistakes. Lily stood in front of the bathroom mirror, a mixture of disbelief and joy washing over her as she looked at the positive pregnancy test in her hand. She couldn't wait to share the news with her husband, Carl. The thought of their family growing brought a warm smile to her face. Carl will be so thrilled, she whispered to herself, already envisioning a future with their child. That evening, Lily prepared Carl's favorite dinner, setting the table with their best china, and dimming the lights for a cozy ambience. Her heart raced with excitement and a touch of nervousness. She rehearsed the words in her mind, imagining his reaction. When Carl walked through the door, he looked unusually tired and distracted, his usual warm smile absent. Lily greeted him with a hug, but he responded with a half-hearted embrace. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Carl sighed and hesitated before speaking. "We need to talk, Lily." Her heart sank a little, sensing the seriousness in his tone. "Can it wait until after dinner?" "I have some exciting news," she said, trying to maintain her composure. Carl shook his head, his expression grave. "No, it can't wait." Lily's hands trembled as she led Carl to the living room. She watched him sit on the edge of the couch, running his fingers through his hair, a gesture she knew all too well when he was stressed. "What is it, Carl?" she asked gently. Carl's eyes met hers, filled with a turmoil she had never seen before. "I've been having an affair," he blurted out. Lily felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her ears rang with disbelief. "What?" she managed to whisper. "There's more," Carl continued, his voice breaking. "She's pregnant too, and it's a boy." Lily's world spun. The room, once filled with the warmth of her plans and dreams, now felt cold and distant. The revelation hit her like a tidal wave, leaving her gasping for air. "Carl, I don't understand. Why are you telling me this?" Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Carl's gaze dropped to the floor. "I'm sorry, Lily. I've decided to be with her. I want a son." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes, blurring her vision. "But I'm pregnant too," she said, her voice a mix of hope and despair. Carl looked up, startled. "You are?" Lily nodded, unable to hold back her tears. "Yes, with your child." "Our child." Carl's face softened momentarily, but then he hardened his resolve. "I've made my decision, Lily. I can't stay." Lily felt a crushing weight on her chest, her mind racing with confusion and heartache. "So, that's it? You're leaving because she's having a boy, and she couldn't finish her sentence. "I'm sorry, Lily." "I truly am," Carl said, standing up. His voice was hollow, devoid of the warmth and love she had known for years. As Carl walked out of the door, Lily sank to the floor, the positive pregnancy test still clutched in her trembling hand. The room was silent except for her quiet sobs. Her dream of a happy family shattered in an instant, replaced by a future full of uncertainty and the daunting prospect of single motherhood. Carl sat in his new apartment, a space devoid of the warmth and memories that had filled his home with Lily. The walls were bare, and the rooms echoed with a silence that weighed heavily on him. As he looked out the window at the city lights, he couldn't shake off a deep-seated sense of loss. His life had taken a drastic turn since he left Lily. He was living with his mistress, Angela, who was now in the late stages of her pregnancy. While the initial excitement of a new life had driven him, the reality of his situation was now sinking in. Carl had always yearned for a son. Growing up in a traditional family, he had internalized the idea that having a male heir was crucial. When Angela told him she was expecting a boy, it seemed like a sign, a validation of his deep-seated desires. But now, as he sat alone while Angela visited her doctor, doubt crept in. He thought back to the night he told Lily about the affair. The look of utter devastation on her face haunted him. He remembered her tearful eyes, her voice breaking as she revealed her own pregnancy. Guilt gnawed at him, but he had pushed it aside, convincing himself that he was making the right choice for his future. But the future he had envisioned was far from what he was experiencing. Angela was different from Lily. Where Lily had been warm and nurturing, Angela was often distant and focused on her own needs. Their conversations lacked depth and understanding. Carl missed the effortless connection he had with Lily, their shared laughter, and comfortable silences. As days turned into weeks, Carl's relationship with Angela became increasingly strained. They argued over trivial things, and Carl often found himself walking on eggshells around her. He missed the stability and love he had with Lily, but pride and fear of judgment from his family and friends kept him from admitting his mistake. One evening, as Carl returned home from work, Angela greeted him with an unexpected news. "The doctor made a mistake," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "We're having a girl, not a boy." Carl stood still, processing the news. A girl. The very reason he had left Lily was now irrelevant. He felt a rush of emotions, confusion, anger, but most of all, an overwhelming sense of irony. Angela watched him expectantly, as if waiting for a reaction. Carl realized that his feelings for Angela weren't grounded in love, but in the idea of having a son. Now, with that idea shattered, he felt lost. Sleepless nights followed. Carl tossed and turned, wrestling with his thoughts. He realized how much he missed Lily. Her gentle smile, the way her eyes lit up when she laughed, the comfort of just being with her. He longed to talk to her, to hear her voice, but he knew he had crossed a line that couldn't be easily uncrossed. As he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Carl understood the magnitude of his mistake. He had traded a loving, genuine relationship for a mirage that had now dissolved, leaving him in a limbo of his own making. He was consumed by a profound sense of regret, but he had no idea how to begin mending the bridges he had so carelessly burned. In the quiet of her sister's guest room, Lily lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The soft glow of the nightlight painted shadows across the room, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. It had been weeks since Carl left, and each day brought its own set of challenges. During the day, she kept herself busy, focusing on her work and preparing for the baby. But at night, the loneliness crept in, bringing with it a flood of memories and what-ifs. The pain of Carl's betrayal still stung sharply, but with each passing day, Lily felt a growing sense of resolve. She had always been independent, but her life with Carl had become a shared journey. Now, she was charting a course on her own again, this time with the added responsibility of a child on the way. The thought was daunting, yet it ignited a strength within her she didn't know she had. Lily's sister, Emma, had been her rock, providing not just a place to stay but also unwavering support. They spent evenings talking over cups of tea, with Emma listening patiently as Lily processed her feelings. It was during one of these talks that Lily made a decision that marked a turning point. "I need to do this on my own," Lily said, her voice steady. "I can't let Carl's choices dictate my happiness or my child's future." Emma reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You're stronger than you know, Lily. You can do this." The next day, Lily started to put her plan into action. She began looking for a new place to live, a home where she and her baby could start fresh. She also reached out to a lawyer to discuss her options regarding the divorce and custody. As the pregnancy progressed, Lily found joy in the little things. She enjoyed picking out baby clothes, decorating the nursery, and feeling the baby's kicks and movements. Each flutter was a reminder of the life growing inside her, a life that depended on her and her alone. Lily also found support in a local group for single mothers. The women she met there were from all walks of life, each with their own story of resilience. They shared advice, laughter, and sometimes tears. In their company, Lily didn't feel quite so alone. One afternoon, as Lily sat in the park watching children play, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Carl. Her heart skipped a beat as she read his words, a plea for forgiveness and a request to meet. For a moment, she was transported back to the life they had shared, to the love that once was. But as she watched a mother scoop up her child and spin her around in a hug, Lily's resolve hardened. She had come too far to turn back now. She replied to Carl, her message short but clear. She wished him well, but there was no path back for them. As she walked back home, Lily felt a sense of peace. The road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it head-on, for herself and for her baby. In her heart, she carried not just the pain of the past, but the promise of a new beginning. Carl's life, once filled with certainty and direction, had become a maze of regret and confusion. The revelation that Angela was also expecting a girl had left him reeling, exacerbating the already growing rift between them. His dreams of a son, the very foundation of his decision to leave Lily, had crumbled, leaving him to confront the reality of his actions. Angela, sensing Carl's disappointment and detachment, became increasingly resentful. Their conversations turned into arguments, their arguments into silences. The apartment that had once represented a new beginning now felt like a prison of his own making. Carl's thoughts often drifted to Lily. He imagined her navigating her pregnancy alone, her strength in the face of his betrayal. The more he thought about her, the more he realized the depth of his mistake. He missed her not just as his wife, but as his best friend, his confidant, his partner in life. One day, driven by a mix of guilt and longing, Carl reached out to Lily. He sent her a message, an awkward blend of apology and a plea for reconciliation. He waited anxiously for her response, a response that came swiftly but not as he had hoped. Lily's message was kind but firm. She had moved on, she wrote, and while she wished him well, there was no chance of them getting back together. Carl read her words over and over, each time feeling a sharp sting. It was a closure, but not the kind he had hoped for. Meanwhile, Angela's pregnancy progressed, and Carl tried to muster excitement for the arrival of his daughter. But his heart wasn't in it. He went through the motions, attending doctor's appointments and helping with nursery preparations, but his thoughts were stuck in the past. The day Angela gave birth was a whirlwind of emotions. Carl held his daughter for the first time, expecting a surge of paternal love, but what he felt was something more complex. He loved his daughter, there was no doubt about that, but her arrival also marked the final severance of the life he once had with Lily. In the weeks that followed, the situation at home deteriorated. Angela, struggling with the demands of new motherhood and feeling neglected by Carl, made a decision. She confronted Carl one evening, her eyes brimming with tears and frustration. "I can't do this anymore, Carl," she said, her voice trembling. "I need someone who is fully present, not just physically but emotionally." "And you're not. You never were." Carl knew she was right. He had been living in a limbo, caught between his past and his present, unable to fully commit to either. With a heavy heart, he agreed to separate. As Carl moved out of the apartment, he felt a profound sense of loss but also a faint glimmer of relief. He had lost Lily, and now Angela and his daughter were also part of a life he could no longer claim as his own. Carl found himself alone, his world stripped to its foundations. He had to start over, but this time the journey was not just about building a new life, but also about making amends with the past and finding redemption within himself. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and introspection, but it was a road he knew he had to walk. Carl sat in the small, sparsely furnished apartment he had rented after leaving Angela. The walls were bare, and the silence was a stark contrast to the life he once knew. He was alone, a situation he had created through a series of choices that now seemed misguided and selfish. In the solitude of his new reality, Carl had time to reflect. He thought about Lily, her strength and grace in the face of his betrayal. He remembered the love they shared, a love he had recklessly thrown away for a mirage of happiness. Then, there was his daughter, a beautiful innocent life he had helped bring into this world but wasn't fully present for. The days were long, and the nights even longer. Carl's job offered little distraction, he went through the motions, but his heart wasn't in it. His colleagues noticed the change in him, the absence of the spark that once made him a vibrant part of the team. He realized that he needed to make a change, not just for the sake of going through another day, but to find a sense of purpose and perhaps redemption. Carl began to seek therapy, a step towards understanding himself and the decisions that led him to this point. Each session was challenging, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the pain he had caused. Carl also made an effort to be a part of his daughter's life. He reached out to Angela, not to rekindle their relationship, but to be a responsible father. Their interactions were awkward at first, marked by the remnants of their failed relationship. However, Angela recognized Carl's sincere effort to change and gradually allowed him a role in their daughter's life. During his visits, Carl learned the joys and challenges of fatherhood. He cherished the moments with his daughter, her laughter, her curiosity about the world, and even the sleepless nights. In her, he found a love he hadn't known before, a love that was pure and untainted by his past mistakes. Yet, the path to self-forgiveness was arduous. Carl struggled with guilt and regret, especially when he thought about Lily. He respected her decision to move on and knew he had no right to disrupt her life again. Instead, he focused on becoming a better person, someone who, if not deserving of forgiveness, was at least working towards being better. Carl also started volunteering at a local community center, helping others who were facing their own crossroads in life. In helping others, he found a sense of peace and a way to give back, something that had been missing from his life for a long time. As months turned into a year, Carl's life took on a new rhythm. He was no longer the man who had walked out on Lily, nor was he the man who had lived with Angela. He was someone new, someone who had looked into the abyss of his own making and had found a way to climb out. The story ends with Carl sitting by the window in his apartment, looking out at the city. He is alone, but it's a different kind of solitude now, one filled with introspection, growth, and a quiet hope. He understands that some bridges have been burned forever, but he also knows that the path to redemption is a lifelong journey. And for the first time in a long time, he feels ready to walk that path.